The woman in the doorway, darker, more psychological, and deeply suspenseful. The tension now begins to twist into psychological horror, hidden truth, and the slow reveal of whoever that woman truly is. The woman stepped into the room slowly, one foot after the other, the heel of her red shoes tapping lightly on the wooden floor. Red shoes. My stomach twisted violently. The voice in the wall, the whisper, had warned me about her. Don't trust the woman in the red shoes. And now she stood in front of me. Her silhouette blocking the faint hallway light. Her posture calm, almost gentle. If I hadn't heard the whispers, I might have thought she was harmless. But the air around her felt wrong. Not cold. Not heavy. Just wrong. Like the atmosphere bent around her presence. She tilted her head slightly, like someone examining a wounded animal. You look frightened, she said softly. Her voice was smooth, musical, even comforting. But her eyes didn't blink. Not once. I heard you walking around, she continued. What are you doing awake at this hour? I swallowed hard, my throat so dry I could barely form words. I think. Lie. Tell the truth. Run. Something inside me, some instinct I didn't know I had, screamed. Do not give her the truth. I thought I heard something. An animal. Maybe in the walls. She took 2 small steps closer. The sounds behind the hidden panel shifted, like someone tried not to breathe. An animal. A mistake. I shouldn't have said that. Because her smile widened. Just slightly. There's nothing in the walls, she whispered. Nothing alive, anyway. Her eyes flicked, just briefly, toward the exact spot of the hidden panel. She knew. She knew someone was in there. My heartbeat thrashed violently. She took another step, closing the distance between us. Her perfume, sweet, floral, strangely nostalgic, filled the air. It reminded me of something. Someone. But every time I tried to grasp the memory, it slipped like water through my fingers. You shouldn't be in this room, she said again. Gently. Almost like a mother scolding a child. But beneath the softness, there was something sharper. Something cold and predatory. Come, she said, holding out her hand. Let me take you back to your room. You're trembling. You look like you're about to faint. I didn't move. Couldn't move. Her fingers were only inches from my arm when. Thump. A loud, desperate hit slammed from behind the panel. Her hand froze midair. Another thump. Then a muffled scream. Don't let her take you. The woman's head turned toward the wall with unnatural slowness. The smile vanished. Her face became perfectly still. Not angry. Not shocked. Just blank. Empty. As if she'd removed every human emotion from her expression. When she finally spoke again, her voice was lower, flatter. You're hearing things, she said. Stress can do that. Another scream from the panel. Run. Her eyes snapped to mine, cold, predatory, no longer pretending to be kind. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Come with me. Now. My body moved before my brain could catch up. Not toward her. Away from her. I shoved past her shoulder, sprinting into the hallway. Her fingers brushed my sleeve, icy, bone-chilling cold, before I ripped myself free. Behind me, her voice echoed sharply. Stop. I didn't. I ran. Barefoot. Panicked. Heart exploding inside my chest. The hallway lights flickered violently as if the house itself was reacting. Behind me. Heavy footsteps. Rapid. Chasing. She wasn't walking anymore. She was running. Fast. Too fast. I stumbled down the staircase, nearly falling the last 3 steps. My palms slammed into the living room floor as I scrambled toward the front door. Locked. Deadbolt. When did it get locked? I twisted the bolt with trembling fingers. It jammed halfway. I yanked it harder. Behind me, the footsteps grew louder. Closer. She was almost. Bomb. A hand slammed the wall behind me, inches from my head. I jerked around. She stood at the bottom of the stairs, chest rising and falling, not from exertion, but from something far more unsettling. Anticipation. You shouldn't run from me, she whispered. You know better. Know better? I didn't know her. I had never met her. So why did her words make my skin crawl with a terrible familiarity? I shoved the bolt again. It snapped loose. I flung the front door open. A blast of freezing wind hit me. Snowflakes whirled in, swirling around the room like ghosts. I sprinted outside. Barely 2 steps off the porch. The house lights cut off. The entire place plunged into darkness. Behind me, from the doorway, I heard her voice, no longer calm. You are making a mistake you can't undo. I ran harder. The cold burned my lungs. My feet stung against the icy ground. But I didn't stop until I reached the edge of the driveway. Only then did I turn back. The woman stood in the open doorway. But now she wasn't alone. Behind her, in the darkness, dozens of faint silhouettes shifted inside the house. Some tall, some short, some crawling, some distortingly bent, all watching me. Frozen. Silent. Waiting. The woman raised one hand, her red shoe stepping gently onto the porch edge. You can run, she whispered. But you still live here. My body shook with horror. Because she was right. I didn't have anywhere else to go. And whatever was trapped inside that wall, whatever warned me, was still in there. The snow fell harder. The house lights flickered once. Then, one by one, the silhouettes behind her stepped back into the darkness. And the door slammed shut. Deeper danger, more revelations, and the first real glimpse that the house itself has a history you were never meant to know. The man in the wall. The cold outside was sharp enough to sting my bones. I stood at the edge of the driveway, breath fogging in front of me, staring at the house, the place I had believed was mine. My safe haven. My quiet retreat. Now, it felt like a living thing watching me. Breathing. Waiting. My hands trembled violently. The tips of my fingers had gone numb in the freezing night. Snow thickened around my ankles, a slow burial. I had to move. I had to think. I had to. Hey. A voice snapped behind me, slicing through the icy air. I spun around. A man trudged toward me from the far end of the street, bundled in a heavy winter coat. His breath puffed out in thick clouds as he jogged closer. Are you okay? He asked. It's freezing out here. I couldn't speak at first. My throat was tight. My heart still pounded from the chase inside. He glanced at the house behind me. Then back at me. You live there? He asked. Something in his tone made the hairs on my arms rise. I swallowed hard. Yes. His expression shifted, just barely, but enough to catch. A flicker of concern. Recognition. Fear. You should come inside, he said quickly. My place is warm. You look like you're going into shock. I hesitated. Maybe under normal circumstances, I would have accepted. But something inside me, some instinct sharpened by terror, kept me still. Do you know her? I whispered. He blinked. Who? The woman, in the red shoes. His entire face drained of color. He took a step back. Just one. But it was enough. You've seen her, he whispered. I nodded slowly. His voice dropped to a hoarse whisper. You need to get away from this house. I tried, I said. But someone is, trapped inside the walls. He stared at me for a long, heavy moment. Then he did something I didn't expect. He shook his head and whispered. No, they aren't trapped. He looked at the house again, his breath quickening. They're hidden. Before I could respond, a harsh wind whipped through the driveway, carrying a faint metallic smell, like old rust and something deeper, rotten. The man stiffened. We can't talk out here, he muttered. She listens through the walls. Through the pipes. Through the foundation itself. What do you mean? He grabbed my arm, not roughly, but urgently. Come with me. No. My voice was barely audible, but the refusal shocked even me. His grip loosened instantly. I'm not trying to hurt you, he said. I'm trying to keep you alive. He looked at me again, really looked, and his eyes softened. You think you're the first person to hear someone in the walls? I stopped breathing. What? I whispered. He nodded grimly. That house has been forcing people inside itself for years. He swallowed. And she decides who gets out. My stomach twisted into knots. This wasn't just my nightmare. This wasn't just some haunting. This was a pattern. How do you know all this? I asked, voice shaking. He stared at the snow for a moment before answering. Because I used to live there. My entire body went cold. You, what? I lived in your house, he said quietly. 12 years ago. 12. I tried to remember who owned the home before me. I remembered the old listing photos. A man in his 40s. Dark hair. Smiling with his wife. Are you? Yes, he said before I finished. I'm the one who sold it. Why? His jaw clenched. Because we had to get out before she noticed we were planning to leave. A violent shiver ran through me. She? I whispered. He pointed at my house. The one wearing the red shoes. Before I could respond, a sharp metallic click echoed from the front door. The man grabbed my arm again. She's opening the door. My head whipped around. The front door swung inward, slowly, deliberately. Warm yellow light spilled onto the snow. No figure stood in the doorway. But her red shoe footprints appeared. One by one. In the snow. Moving toward us. The man's face turned white with terror. Run. I froze. He yanked my arm harder. I said run. But before I could move, a whisper curled through the air, soft, unmistakable, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. Why are you speaking to him? The man's eyes widened. She's here. We ran. Snow splashed beneath our feet as we sprinted down the street. The wind howled. My breath tore from my lungs. The man kept pulling me, dragging me faster, shouting something I couldn't fully hear over the pounding of my heart. When we reached the corner of the road, I chanced one look back. I wish I hadn't. The front door of my home was wide open. And on the porch. A woman stood. Her red shoes gleamed in the porch light. Her dress fluttered in the wind, though the air around her was deathly still. She wasn't running. She didn't need to. She just watched us flee. And then. Slowly, deliberately. She lifted her hand. And waved. Not threatening. Not angry. Just a gentle wave. As if she knew something we didn't. As if she knew we would come back. The man pulled me behind a car, crouching low. We can't stay on the street, he whispered. She'll follow. I tried to catch my breath. What does she want? I gasped. He shook his head slowly. She doesn't want you. A beat. She wants the house to keep its promise. What promise? His jaw tightened. Then he whispered. No one told you, did they? Told me what? His voice was barely audible. Your house was never built for the living. The house that remembers. One of the darkest chapters so far. This is where the history of the house, the truth about the trapped voices, and the woman in the red shoes finally begin to surface. We crouched behind the parked car for several minutes before either of us dared to move. The cold gnawed at my skin, but fear kept my blood boiling hot. My pulse felt like it shook the snow beneath my boots. The woman in the red shoes was no longer on the porch. The door had closed. The house stood still once again, quiet, innocent-looking, a liar in wood and brick. The man beside me took several ragged breaths, then wiped snow from his eyebrow with a trembling gloved hand. Follow me, he whispered. We can't talk out here. Where are we going? I asked. To somewhere she can't hear us. A shiver crept through me. She listens through the walls, he added. But the walls don't reach everywhere. He hurried down the side street, and I forced my shaking legs to follow. The basement of secrets. He led me 2 blocks through the snow until we reached a small, older house with darkened windows. A cracked porch light flickered overhead. This is where you live? I whispered. He shook his head. No. I wouldn't dare live this close. He dug into his pocket, pulled out a key, and led me into the backyard. We crept down some steps and entered through a side door into a small basement. A single bulb hummed weakly above us. The air smelled of dust, old books, and something faintly metallic. He locked the door behind us. Then he finally spoke. Sit down. I sat on a wooden crate. My legs felt like they didn't belong to me. He paced the room, rubbing his face with both gloved hands. I didn't expect this, he muttered. I thought she forgot about you. Forgot? I whispered. Forgot what? He stopped pacing. Then he turned toward me, eyes hollow. You bought a cursed house, he said softly. But not cursed the way people think. The bulb flickered. Your house, he continued, wasn't built on normal land. The structure below it, the original foundation, goes back almost 60 years. 60? I repeated. He nodded. But the records lie. They claim the house was built 50 years ago. He exhaled. That's when the second foundation was poured over the first one. Why would they do that? His jaw tightened. Because the first one was never meant to be found. I felt my throat tighten. The first foundation was a holding place, he said. Not for tools. Not for supplies. He looked me dead in the eyes. 4 people. My chest tightened. 4 people? He nodded grimly. 8 of them. All missing. All presumed dead. But they weren't dead. Not at first. I felt bile rise in my throat. Who put them there? His voice lowered. That's the part the town won't talk about. But the story is older than both of us. He grabbed a dusty cardboard box from a shelf and slid it to me. Inside were newspaper clippings, old surveillance photos, and handwritten letters. I picked up the first clipping. Local shelter collapses, 8 workers unaccounted for. Date, 1964. He nodded at it. That wasn't a shelter. It was a holding site. Those 8 people were locked beneath the building during a structural collapse. Rescue attempts minimized. Then forgotten. I swallowed. What does that have to do with my house? His voice cracked. That shelter sat exactly where your house sits now. The bulb buzzed above us. During reconstruction, the old underground chamber wasn't removed. They sealed it. Buried it under concrete. Built your home right over it. A sickening shiver crawled up my spine. Wait. I whispered. The scratching in my walls. He nodded. They're not in the walls, he said softly. They're in the old chamber. The room tilted around me. I felt dizzy. Those people, I whispered shakily. Are they still alive? He hesitated. Then shook his head. No. Not in any human way. I felt cold spread through my bones. Something happened down there, he continued. Something the town covered up. Something no one survived. And the woman in the red shoes? I asked. His face darkened. She was the last person seen entering the shelter before it collapsed. I felt ice creep up my spine. She was the director? I whispered. No, he said quietly. Not the director. He stared at the floor, voice barely audible. She was the warden. The woman who never left. The man opened another folder and pulled out a photo. A grainy black and white image of a smiling woman holding a clipboard. Short hair. Sharp eyes. Wearing red shoes. I felt the air leave my lungs. That's her? My voice cracked. He nodded. Elora Voss, he said. They say she supervised the underground holding rooms. People called her the Red Warden. He swallowed hard. When the collapse happened, she should have died with the others. Should have, I repeated, voice shaking. He nodded once. But the rescue workers heard something when they dug. What? A woman's voice. Humming. Calm. Like she wasn't trapped at all. Like she was waiting. My heart hammered painfully. But when they opened the chamber. He paused. Nothing was there. No bodies. No signs of anyone. Nothing? I whispered. His eyes locked on mine. There was only a pair of red shoes sitting in the center of the floor. A cold shiver rippled through me. Do you understand now? He whispered. I didn't. Not fully. But fear answered before my mind could. That woman in my house, I said softly. She's Elora Voss? Not exactly, he said. What does that mean? He exhaled shakily. I don't think she's alive, he whispered. But she's not gone either. Whatever she became, it's tied to that foundation. Tied to the 8 who died below it. Tied to the house you're living in. I felt my stomach twist. And the voices in the walls? I asked. His jaw clenched. They're the ones she didn't let escape. Silence filled the basement. Thick. Heavy. Suffocating. Then I whispered the question I never wanted to ask. Why is she after me? He looked at me with something like pity. Because you opened the room she sealed. The warning? He reached toward the box and pulled out a final object, a torn journal page, yellow and brittle. The handwriting was frantic. If you hear her footsteps, don't breathe. If she speaks to you, don't answer. If she smiles, it's already too late. And beneath those lines, written in larger, trembling letters. The house chooses one. Only one. Don't let it be you. My blood ran cold. Why would the house choose someone? I whispered. He hesitated. Then finally answered. Because it always needs a keeper. I shook my head in confusion. A keeper for what? He swallowed. For the ones trapped below. The bulb flickered violently above us. Then went out. Pitch black. No hum. No warning. No sound. Until a soft voice breathed into the darkness. You shouldn't be here. The shadow who calls my name. The night pressed in on the house like a held breath. The storm had grown worse, swallowing the power lines outside, leaving only the dim glow of the emergency lantern in the hallway. Every sound echoed. Every shadow felt alive. Every step I took seemed to stir something unseen, like the house itself was listening. But nothing was louder than the pounding in my chest. Because now I knew. Someone had been trapped here long before I arrived. Someone who knew this place. Someone who didn't want me to leave. And they were getting bolder. The scratches in the wall. At first, I thought it was the wind, a long dragging noise across the hallway wall. But then it came again. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Slow. Purposeful. I held my breath. Listened. And then, a whisper. A broken voice, hoarse, trembling, so close it brushed against my ear even though no one was there. Don't open the door. I froze. My skin turned to ice. I spun around, but the hallway was empty. Yet I knew the voice. I'd heard it once before. In the attic. In the dark. Just before the trapdoor slammed shut on its own. I whispered into the silence, "Who's there?" Nothing. Then. Thump. A heavy knock from inside the walls. A knock that matched my heartbeat. The note that shouldn't exist. I backed toward the living room, forcing myself to breathe. The lantern flickered, casting trembling shadows across the ceiling beams. That's when I saw it. A piece of paper slid halfway under the living room door. It hadn't been there before. My hands shook as I picked it up. The handwriting was frantic, uneven, like someone wrote while running out of time. You are not alone in this house. You never were. Check the basement floor, but come alone. My blood ran cold. The basement. The place I had avoided since the day I moved in. The door was old, half-rotten, and always seemed to breathe cold air from beneath it, like something down there was, waiting. Beneath the message was a symbol, a circle with 3 lines cutting through it, carved so deep into the paper that it almost tore. I'd seen that symbol before. On the paint-caked floor of the hidden room behind the hallway mirror. The place where someone had been living secretly. Watching me. The caller returns. The house phone rang. The sharp sound cut through the silence like a knife. I spun toward it. It shouldn't have been ringing. The storm had killed the lines hours ago. When I picked up the receiver, the same broken voice from the hallway whispered. They know you're close. Don't trust the footsteps you hear. Not all of them are mine. My throat tightened. Who are you? Why are you here? A shaky exhale. I tried to leave, but the house won't let me. What does that mean? There was a pause, then a sound like shivering breath. Look behind you. Slowly, painfully. I turned. The lantern flickered again. And at the far end of the hallway. A figure. Standing perfectly still. Not moving. Not breathing. Just watching. The vanishing figure. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then lightning flashed outside and the figure vanished, gone in a blink, leaving only ripple-like shadows behind, as if reality had bent around it. The voice on the phone trembled. You saw it, didn't you? Now you understand why the house keeps choosing people. Why it chose you. My knees felt weak. Tell me what's happening. But the line went dead. A soft click. And the electric hum of silence. The basement calls. I stared at the note again. At the symbol. At the shaking, desperate handwriting. Someone trapped here wanted help. Someone else didn't want the truth revealed. And somewhere in that cold basement was the first piece of the real story. I grabbed the lantern, forcing the fear down my throat like a stone. Each step toward the basement door felt heavier, like invisible hands were tugging at my clothes, urging me to turn back. But I didn't. Not this time. When I reached the basement door, the wood felt warm, almost pulsing. Like a heartbeat. I swallowed hard and put my hand on the rusted knob. Turned it. The door creaked open slowly, painfully, revealing a staircase drowned in darkness, the air colder than winter breath. As I stepped inside, the lantern flickered again. And I saw it. A shadow at the bottom of the stairs. Small. Crouched. Waiting. But as the light steadied, the shadow dissolved into thin air, leaving behind only a whisper that floated up the stairs like smoke. Descent into darkness. The tension escalates, the basement is finally explored, and the stakes rise dramatically. The basement air hit me like a blade of ice. It wasn't just cold. It was alive. Breathing. Watching. Waiting. My lantern flickered, throwing jagged shadows across the walls. Every shadow seemed to move on its own, stretching, curling, shifting like living things. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might explode. And yet, I couldn't stop. I had to know. The first step. I descended slowly, gripping the railing. The wood felt slick, almost wet, despite the dry cold of the house. Each step creaked under my weight, echoed down the concrete abyss. At the bottom, the smell hit me. Iron. Mold. Something old. Something decayed. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat and held the lantern high. The room was bigger than I expected. Dust hung thick in the air, coating everything. Boxes and broken furniture littered the floor. But that wasn't what caught my attention. It was the walls. Scratched into the concrete in frantic, jagged letters. Don't let her in. She will take you. Run. The handwriting was older, darker, faded in places as though written decades ago. And then I saw it, the first trapdoor. A small, square hatch set into the floorboards, bound by rusted metal hinges and a corroded lock. The same hatch my grandfather had warned me about. The whisper from below. I knelt beside the trapdoor, hand hovering over the key I had kept in my pocket. Then a whisper floated up from beneath it. Ariana, you shouldn't be here. The voice trembled, weak, hoarse, desperate. It was Evan. I pressed my palm against the cold wood, listening. It's watching, it knows. My blood ran cold. It can hear you, can't it? I whispered softly, my voice shaking. A pause. Then. Yes, but I can help, if you open it. The warning. I froze. The memory of the woman in the red shoes slammed into my mind. Her warning. The storekeeper's warning. The whispers in the walls. Do not open anything. Do not help anyone calling from behind walls. And yet. Evan's voice. Fragile, desperate. Alive. I clenched the lantern so tight my knuckles cracked. I need to get out, I whispered, my chest tightening. I can't leave you here. Then hurry, he said. Before she comes. The floorboards beneath my knees groaned. The shadows seemed to lean closer. The air pulsed, heavy, almost tactile. I glanced toward the staircase. The basement door at the top was shut now. Far too quiet. Far too empty. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Soft. Methodical. Coming down the stairs. She descends. I jumped to my feet, lantern raised. The sound of heels echoed against the concrete steps. Red. Shining. Crisp. Deliberate. The woman in the red shoes. Elora. Her shadow stretched down the stairwell, taller than her body should allow. She moved silently, yet her presence filled the room like smoke. You shouldn't be here, she whispered, almost mockingly. I backed toward the trapdoor. Evan is down there. I shouted. I'm not leaving him. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. But he belongs to the house now. And so do you. A gust of wind slammed into me, carrying voices, hundreds of them, rising from the darkness below. Screams, whispers, pleas. Some familiar, some horrifyingly alien. Evan's voice broke through. Help me. Please. Hurry. The decision. My fingers hovered over the rusted lock. The air thickened. Shadows writhed on the walls. The whispers multiplied. Don't. And yet the voice of a boy, so human, so alive, called out desperately. I made my choice. I forced the key into the lock. The metal groaned. The hinges protested. And as the trapdoor creaked open, the room below seemed to inhale. The shadows paused. The whispers stilled. And then, something stirred. Something alive. Something that had been waiting for decades in the dark. Evan's face appeared in the opening, pale, gaunt, eyes wide with terror. And then, behind him, a shape moved. Slow. Silent. Lurking. Watching. Waiting. And the woman in the red shoes stepped closer, tilting her head. You shouldn't have done that, she whispered. The air around me thickened. The basement seemed to shrink, walls pulsing with life. And then a low, guttural sound rose from the darkness, a sound that was not human. The house was waking. The truth beneath. Ariana faces the basement's horrors, the trapped voices, and the first shocking truth about what the house truly feeds on. The horror deepens, and the basement finally reveals its true terror. The basement seemed to breathe as I leaned over the trapdoor. Evan's face appeared in the dim light, hollow eyes, pale skin, lips trembling. Quick, he whispered. Before it, realizes you've opened it. I swallowed hard. Opened what? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Everything, he said. The house, the people, it feeds on fear. On the ones it traps. On the ones it chooses. I glanced at the shadows in the corners. Elora's red shoes were now just inches away, silent, patient, like a predator watching prey that doesn't yet know it's hunted. Why are you alive? I asked Evan. Why are you here? He shook his head. I'm not supposed to be, he whispered. I tried to leave once. It lets no one go. Not fully. Not without paying. The voices from beneath the trapdoor rose in urgency, frantic, overlapping. Help, please, hurry. I didn't hesitate. I lowered the lantern into the darkness and peered inside. The basement below the trapdoor was vast. Bigger than it should be. Concrete walls stretched into shadowed corners. Chains, shackles, and broken remnants of furniture littered the floor. And in the center, 8 figures, 8 hollow, twisted, pale forms, looked up at me. Some were barely recognizable as human. Their eyes were wide, glassy, reflecting fear and rage and something else, something alive. And there, crouched next to them, was Evan, hands tied, eyes wide with terror. I lifted the lantern higher. The shadows writhed. They weren't just shadows. They were the shapes of the trapped. 8, maybe more. Then, a soft, musical hum echoed through the basement. Elora. Her eyes glinted as she stepped closer to the trapdoor. You shouldn't have opened it, she whispered. The house chose you. And now. Her lips curved into a smile that was both beautiful and horrifying. Now, it will claim you as well. The first touch of darkness. As I descended the last few steps into the trapdoor, the air thickened. My lungs burned. My fingers shook. My mind screamed to turn back. But Evan was there. Help me, he whispered, desperation raw in his voice. I dropped to my knees and worked to undo his restraints. My hands fumbled with cold, rusted metal. Then, a hand clamped down on my shoulder. I spun around. Elora's face inches from mine. Her red eyes glimmered faintly, almost as if reflecting the light of the trapped souls below. You can't save him, she said softly. Then why are you here? I demanded, trembling. Because, she whispered, I am the warden. I keep them here. I keep them alive. But alive is a word you will never understand down here. Her hand brushed the wall, and the chains rattled. The shadows shifted violently. The house, she said, almost to herself. It remembers everything. Every fear, every choice, every step taken inside it. And it demands payment. The horror revealed. I looked down. The floorboards under the trapdoor were etched with symbols, twisted, ancient, and unmistakably tied to something dark. The 8 trapped figures rose slowly. Their movements were jerky, unnatural. Their eyes, hollow, but watching. Waiting. Then one of them whispered. She chooses. Evan shivered. They feed on us, he muttered. They make her strong. She is tied to it. To the house. To every one of us who ever lived, or died, here. I realized then the truth. The house was alive. And it didn't just trap. It hunts. And now it had chosen me. I felt a cold pressure at the back of my neck. Shadows closing in. The basement seemed smaller. The trapped figure's whispers grew louder, more urgent. Elora stepped closer. You opened the room, she said. You've seen what lies beneath. And the house doesn't forgive mistakes. Evan's voice cracked. Run. I turned, but the basement walls rippled, bending light, warping the shadows. Something low, deep, and inhuman growled from the far corner. Something moved toward me. And then the whispers became screams. She's coming, it's here, run. The house was alive. And now it wanted me.